You're listening to E-commerce Fastlane, the podcast show to help you build, manage, grow, and scale a successful and thriving company, powered by Shopify. Listen to real conversations with partners and subject matter experts as they share proven practical strategies, platforms, and the best Shopify apps to help you accelerate your business. The time is now for you to improve efficiencies, grow revenue, profit, and lifetime customer loyalty. Please welcome your host, startup founder and strategic advisor, Steve Hutt.
Well, hey there, welcome back to E-commerce Fastlane. I'm your host, Steve Hutt. Now, imagine if you're about to launch a new product or an ad campaign, and you've got a couple different choices here. You can, spend $15,000 and wait, 4 to 6 weeks for an agency, to create and maybe test some different ad variants that you want to do. Or you could spend $50 maybe and get like 20 kind of AI generated, consumer validated, I might add, ad concepts really in under 15 minutes, and with data showing exactly which ones will convert before you spend a single solitary dollar. And, with 1 year ago, I can guarantee you that second option did not exist. But today, I'm really excited to have this opportunity to interview this founder today. But today, the game is changing now for small to mid-sized brands who have really been I argue, maybe locked out a bit on a lot of this kind of sophisticated testing that a lot of the large, 8-figure brands have really had access to, or the bankroll to be able to do it. And today, I'm joined with Armin, who is the CEO and co-founder of a company called Extuitive, and it's spelled Extuitive, Extuitive. And they're a company, they really emerged from Flagship Pioneering, which is the original lab behind Moderna. And Armin and his team, really, they have built something very unique. I'd call it almost remarkable. It's a proprietary database. I'll let him speak about it in a moment, but it's a database of over 100,000 AI consumer agents that can accurately predict a purchase intent. And then think about all the skepticism triggers and all the price sensitivity things. All these things that happen or all have been organized from this database, very proprietary. And now this is available to Shopify merchants. It's really interesting. I'm really excited to jump into it. I don't want to make this preamble too long because I think we've got to get into the meat and potatoes about what is very unique about, because there are other competitors in the market that are attempting to do AI generated ads, but the challenge is that they don't have the depth and the breadth that Armin and his company is actually bringing to the table. So, hi Armin, welcome to E-commerce Fastlane.
Thank you, Steve. It's great to be with you.
Yeah, so this is really fun. So let's talk about your background a bit, because it's really quite fascinating. You come from this Flagship Pioneering, it's deep tech, biotech, and healthcare. It seems really interesting, and it's not really the typical path that I would say that you would now want to build a tool for a Shopify merchant. So can you share with me the moment when you kind of realized that there was this opportunity to bring this kind of enterprise level kind of consumer intelligence, but now bring it over to small and mid-sized brands? What made you think that something was broken, and how you believe that AI could fix this?
Yeah, happy to. Thank you, Steve. So as you said, Flagship is a company that creates and originates companies, generally in human health and planet health, except many won't know, but there was a company about 20 years ago, still founded and originated by Flagship, called Afinova, that was doing genetic evolutionary design of consumer products. This was a company that was sold to Nielsen, if I'm not mistaken, in 2014. And I think most of your listeners would know about Nielsen. So Nielsen acquired the company, and something that's now called Basis, which is used to test new concepts and new products, is a product that Nielsen has that is mostly based on Afinova, again, a company that Flagship had. So about probably 3 years ago, when ChatGPT was just out, or maybe a kind of consumer version wasn't out, but the API was out and we are working with it, it occurred to us that the power of multiple different AI systems working together can be revolutionary for new consumer products, but also for potentially for ads and for creative assets. And what I mean by this, Steve, is imagine a world where you would have not just a ChatGPT system that you could use to ask to come up with a new image, but what if you could have a power of 100,000 designers that would come up with new concepts and kind of debate among themselves what's a good concept, what is not, before they show it to you. And that's what we had set up to do about 3 years ago, and which then culminated in a company now, as you said, we called Extuitive, which is doing it we are focusing, as you said, on Shopify merchants and Shopify sellers as our initial market. So that's how we got started.
Yeah, this is amazing. So let's talk about this whole Chat GPT thing, because I think a lot of people, I mean, I know there's some traffic. I know there's some interesting things happening with Shopify right now and Chat GPT as far as like sellers are concerned. We actually can buy from within app now, and they've kind of, OpenAI has kind of made that relationship. And so knowing that, it seems to be on a lot of brands and marketers kind of framework where they actually have it running as part of their day-to-day. It's almost like a necessary part of their job description to have access to it. And so knowing that, what is the difference, let's say, using ChatGPT right now to even make ads or to write ad copy? What's the difference between that and what's actually happening through your system instead?
Yeah, great question. It's actually very different from ChatGPT. What we do initially, when a partner or when a merchant shares their URL with us, and that's generally what we need to start with, we'll analyze their store and products, and then we'll start with the consumer profiles. So we won't be able to generate just an ad. What we need to know is, who are we generating an ad for? Like, who is the consumer of this product? Who are we going to be targeting? And we don't even need the merchants to tell us. In fact, if they want to share, they can share with us. But by just looking at their product, looking at the descriptions of their products, we'll figure out consumer profiles. And in a very detailed way. In fact, we come up with almost a psychological profile on different consumer groups. And generally, we'll start with 5. And for each of these 5 consumer groups, we'll go and create assets. We'll go and create ads. And in fact, what we would do that will almost be impossible to do with any other system, and this is, Steve, or partly it's also based on a concept that we call polyintelligence, combining multiple intelligences, both our human intelligence, machine intelligence, but also being inspired a lot by Flagship, Human Health and Planet Health, using nature's intelligence by creating many different ads. So in fact, the minimum number we'll probably create is 20. We'll take those 20 and we'll apply selective pressure. And selective pressure in our case are all of these consumer agents that we have also trained ourselves based on, at this point, it's 100,000. We are now at 150,000 consumer agents that we have developed, all based on real people who live in the US. Obviously, data is all anonymized, but we collected data from 150,000 real people that provide selective pressure by looking at the 20 ads that we have created and almost like ranking them, like telling us what they like and what they don't like about those 20 assets, 20 ads. And we'll take a subsection of those, generally 4 to 6 of those, and the ones that these consumer agents like the most, and we'll continue iterating on them. We'll continue making them even better. So, and then if you can imagine, after multiple rounds of iteration and creating new ads, applying selective pressure using the consumer agents, you'll end up with much better ads than you'd potentially ever be able to construct with a ChatGPT-like system where you're going to say, create me an ad that is X, Y, and Z. And that's how the system functions in a way. And that's how it's so different from a ChatGPT-like system where it is very specific to your customer. It is also very iterative in a way that we know your consumer is going to like. It also validates at the end before it helps you launch that specific ad.
Very interesting. I know ad creative certainly is, in a lot of cases, is a competitive moat that brands get once they get it right, and they can really start scaling up. Even sometimes UGC content is quite interesting with the influencer side of the world. That really is quite interesting. What I find, and this happens a lot, because I do deal with a lot of businesses where, and I think you bring up this language too about like purchase intent is interesting about the types of ads that are created based on where they are in the marketing funnel and their touch points along the way and their intent based on their search history and other places they've been around the web. And also price sensitivity, I find is an interesting one too, where some people you can tell they're price shopping or they're looking for deals, or you can just tell overall the types of products they're looking at. What's the underlying technology around these sorts of purchase intent or price sensitivity overall as it relates to like ad creative?
Yeah, good question. So in a way, if you imagine if you had a panel of 150,000 people, then you and I could ask ourselves, what if we could ask them a whole bunch of questions? So one of the questions you could ask them is about price sensitivity. Another question you could ask them is about the specific ad, Steve. You could ask these consumers whether they like the ad. In a way, would they actually kind of be excited to pause on that ad if it's kind of on their Facebook feed?
Yeah, stop.
Yeah. Exactly. It's like, is it going to have the impression or not that we are hoping for? But you could also ask them about their propensity to purchase, which is a much deeper question, partly because it's not just how good your ad asset is in itself, meaning how colorful it is, how great it looks, how the content is presented in the right way, how the text that goes with your image matches what a person would want to see. But in general, you also want to know, is this something that the person would actually want to buy?
Right.
And that goes much deeper, partly because then that has to be connected with a whole bunch of other demographic markers that we capture our AI consumers all the way from their age to where they live in terms of zip code, to what they had purchased before, to how many kids they have, what kind of car they drive. So then imagine a world where you could combine all of this together and not just try to predict whether an ad is a visually appealing one, but whether something that you have in your ad is a thing that your targeted consumer would want to buy. And that is what we're also trying to predict with our purchase propensity score that we are generating for our partners.
I see. This is really interesting. Now, once you have all of these ad creative organized and ready to go, like what's typically the next step to actually get these ads into Meta? Because I think part of it is the ad creative is one part of it, and doing proper testing on these ads to see which ones are going to be the winners. But then there's also the targeting side of like, well, and I know you said about this consumer research and things like that. Can you walk us through what happens when we have a group of ads that you believe are going to be successful? Then what's the process into Meta? And then the appropriate targeting for those ads to be successful.
Yeah, happy to. So what happens is a seller, a merchant, a partner of ours would use the platform to come up with a campaign. So they can tell us what the campaign is for. We'll go obviously generate the ad assets. We'll validate them against our AI consumers. We'll iterate on them if we need to. At the end, we'll present it still to the seller or whoever is managing their profile. So then they'd have to confirm that yes, this is what I would want to launch. These are so many of static images, so many of reels, for example, and number of assets that they'd want to launch. We'll also ask them about their calendar. Like we want to know, is there a month where they would actually want to be more active for one or another reason? Is there a specific date that might be a significant day for their industry that actually would want to take into account? Once all of that is taken into account, on top of this, then we'll overlay our consumer demographics. Again, this is the demographic that we've figured out through our AI consumers to know who are the folks that we should be targeting. This may say moms that live in California between the ages of 32 to 45, that these are the zip codes, and generally would have 2 or more kids. And I'm just obviously making this up for our conversation.
Yeah.
But imagine that is what our consumer model had told us. Then what we'll do, we'll take that and then we'll map it to Meta through their specific templates to target the people that I was just mentioning.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll create all of that as a draft in their Meta account. So when a person then logs into their Meta business account, they'll see the ad images, they'll see the reels, they'll see the ad spend if they've provided it to us, they'll see the calendar that's been already set up for them, and they'll see the target demographic, all pre-populated, basically waiting for them to click launch, and then it will launch it for them.
Wow.
So we'll try to make it that easy for someone to go from creating the ad asset to saying, how do you launch this and who do you launch this for?
I see. And then, so then once these are launched, then the next job to be done is the analysis and the success of these ads. And I talk about things like campaign optimization and kind of budget management, I think is a really important part of it. I think, and I've spoken to lots of people that do these sorts of things, bid management and performance monitoring. What's your thought process around handling that and then making the best kind of educated guesses on what to do next?
That's an excellent question. So we have the kind of the pre-launch approval, we call validation, which is with the AI consumers. But then obviously once you launch, then you have the real world feedback on the on the ads that we have launched.
Right.
So we will take all that data daily, in some cases might even be hourly, and feed back into our model and say, this is the thing that was performing well. Let's learn from it. If there was a discrepancy between our AI consumer model and what's happening in the real world. And then we'll adjust our model and say, we are going to stop running this specific ad and we are going to actually run a different ad. But we can do it almost autonomously. And within hours, or at the very least daily, we can basically optimize and change it, Steve. And that's, in fact, I think talking about AI, that's where probably the power of AI mostly shines, partly because in many cases you need to have a person in the loop. And I think you have to have a person that's going to help guide what the system does. But in some cases you don't. In some cases, to help the system run autonomously can be much more powerful. And this is one of those cases that if you are already getting real world data back on click rates, on return of your spend, then you can very quickly optimize and make sure that what you have already launched performs as well as it possibly could.
It's very interesting. And then I know another question that I know people are going to ask, and I think it's the reasons why I say a lot of founders and marketers they know that they have to get involved with AI. They feel that if not, they're going to be left behind, so to speak. But there's also this side of like, do you want to be an early adopter on something? Sometimes being, first mover advantage doesn't always necessarily mean you're going to win, because sometimes things are in their early days. And I think the reason I'm prefacing this question like this is because I don't want to use the word brain rot, but there's lots of like garbage, unfortunately, like in Reels, this is in the video side, but in Reels and TikTok and Shorts and that. And there's a lot of like, even like still images made into video, and there's a lot of junk that's out there on YouTube and other different areas. What's your thought process around like, how do we generate, or how are you generating ads that are actually good, that actually convert, that don't really have this unfortunate stereotype of like, oh, that's an AI picture, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's like I'm sure there's a ton of people thinking exactly the same question. I mean, ultimately, Steve, I think it's you need to deliver the results. I think it's hard to escape the inevitable, which is if you generate ads that don't perform, then you probably aren't really doing something that's very useful. You aren't probably communicating the message to the potential consumer very well. You probably aren't generating images that are worthy of someone paying attention or spending their time to actually learn more about it. What we have found is that our models are become so good that it is hard sometimes to differentiate. And we have done this test actually within our team as well, where we would take a real image that our customer would have, and we'll generate 5 other variations of an ad based on the image that they've provided. And we'll take a real ad that the customer had launched, and people wouldn't be able to tell the difference. It has become, I think, so good that it has almost blurred the lines of what's AI, what's not AI. I'd almost even go further and say many things that people generate using Photoshop these days has some version of AI integrated in it.
Sure.
So whether someone does it manually or someone does it using a prompt is probably not that different. It's almost like going from the kind of Kodak cameras with films to digital cameras. There was some transition, but then at the end, if you actually shot really good photos, they're probably both good on the digital side, but also good on the kind of analog side. And I think that's where we have evolved to, where we could generate with AI just as good of images as we could without, potentially, except it will be much more time consuming. And then if you allow me, maybe one other thing to highlight, Steve, is that the products that we are using or the images of the products are the same exact ones that our partner, our customer would have. So we are not going to be recreating a different product. The setting would be obviously very different. The angle would be very different. How it looks on a specific person may be very different. But we are not going to change the image of the product. We are not going to kind of hallucinate a different product and show it to a consumer. And that's going to be very different from what the actual merchant is selling. And if we do all of that and then combine it with this, what I call selective pressure, meaning asking a whole bunch of AI consumers, but also real consumers to provide input on these ads, you just end up generating such a more superior ad at the end that is both appealing, but also conveys the message of the product.
Ah, I see. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Now, the connection now to Shopify, let's kind of bring it full circle now. That's the bulk of the people that are listening here. You do have a Shopify app. Are you able to talk about some of the, I guess, the technical integrations or maybe some of the workflow that would happen? So someone installs your Shopify app. Can you talk about like kind of what happens as soon as like is it ingesting products and descriptions and titles and does it understand the audience? I'm just curious about inventory levels. Does it bring all that in, and is that all part of your data points to then start the ad creative process along with your consumer insights?
Yeah, no, happy to. We have actually tried, at least initially, we have tried to make it even easier. So you don't even have to install an app. What you do is you just provide us with your URL of your Shopify store. Once we have the URL, we are able to then go and get the product descriptions, all of the images that you had already uploaded to your Shopify store. And on the Shopify side, that's the starting point. Then we also need your credentials as it relates to Meta, for example, partly because if we want to go end to end from optimizing and creating new ads to when launching on Meta, we need some way to basically connect to your Meta account as well. So whether it's the Facebook account or the Instagram account, some people, not as much in the US, but in other areas of the world, they also want to integrate with WhatsApp and launch things on WhatsApp as well. So we'll need your credentials, and that's all we need right now. We don't really need anything else. We've tried to make it the barrier to using what we have so low that it would be almost a no-brainer to say, let us try and see actually how this can help us navigate kind of the world of AI uncertainty.
Mm-hmm. So then, I'm in the midst of writing a book right now, and I talk about in there about AI, but then still having, human oversight and human creativity. Like, AI is not replacing everybody's job. There's all this hyperbole going on the internet. 30% and 40% of jobs are going to be lost and yada, yada, yada. Okay. I don't know if that's necessarily completely true, but my thought to you is that these AI agents, and clearly your system is growing as it learns about the brand and creates better and better creatives. But what's your thought process around the human creativity that goes along with the ad creation process? Like, are there any guardrails that are set up? Is there any a feedback loops from a human's perspective about what's actually being created? And can you nudge your system in a certain direction saying, hey, I like what you did here. Clearly this worked reasonably well, but we believe you might want to try this because this is kind of this is our brand ethos or whatever it might be. I just want to hear your mindset about truly AI play versus how the human gets involved.
Yeah, I think we have it's kind of both probably how I and we, the company, think about this, but probably broadly even how Flagship thinks about this is, as I was mentioning, there's kind of the word we have coined called polyintelligence.
Right. Yeah.
Which I think basically says that we can take machine intelligence, AI, but to make it so much better, we need human intelligence, and potentially we need nature's intelligence. And especially in this case, iteration provides us the kind of nature's intelligence. I'm saying that's how basically nature generally evolves. That's what evolution is. But for what we are launching, human intelligence is critical, Steve, and both to provide some guardrails in terms of what's potentially good for the specific brand. What would be even more exciting for that brand can be, again, the brand guidance is something that actually we expect the human to provide. We also will ingest, by the way, any visual guidance for a specific brand to use when we are generating our images. So you don't have to spell out every single thing, but how that brand the owner, the merchant wants to be perceived. We want that to come from a person. We also allow the person the ability to iterate on every ad that we create. You can literally click on an ad that we have created, and we can say, I love this. I just don't like the background too much, or the fit might be just a bit too large for the shoes that I'm trying to advertise, or could you please have the person look a bit more to the left or to the right? So human is always, I don't want to say in the loop, I'd actually rather use the term on the loop. So the human can always control what's going on. It can also leave the system to run by itself. But at the end, human has to be approving what goes on. We don't want to have a system where, maybe at some point we will, by the way, but at least for now, we don't want to have a system where suddenly you say, my budget is 10K per month, and then you don't touch anything at all from ad generation to anything else, and you come at the end of at the month and say, your 10K has been spent, these are the results. I think we are probably going to get there at some point. But initially, I want the merchant and the user to be involved in the process as well, because I'll learn from them how to make it better for their own specific store, for their own specific brand, to incorporate in the next iterations.
Yeah, I love this. So I guess my takeaway on this about just like your human intelligence part of it, and these guardrails, is the fact that humans, like the brand owner, they're the ones that set the kind of strategic direction of the business, the brand voice, all that kind of stuff, and even ethical constraints, I guess, around the business. But it's really interesting that having all of that, it sounds like your team has also built, some kind of bias checks or some calibration built into that, and saying that you recognize the fact that the AI can do certain things really, really well, but it's also nice to be able to harness what the human has to say and what the brand owner has to say about it, and giving feedback on that. So it's really interesting.
Yeah, and I think Steve, at the end, sometimes I think with, again, someone who also did their PhD on AI, but we focus sometimes too much on AI. I don't think it's about the AI, it's about machine learning, however we want to kind of call these tools that we use. It's about the productivity of a person that is behind the store, that's behind the business. It's about their performance and how much time we are able to give them back by using the tools, whether it's an AI tool, whether it's a data analytics tool, or any other tool. I think that's what these tools are meant to be. And I hope that we all treat them just like that. They are tools, whether these are AI tools or non-AI tools, to make what we do much more productive.
Yeah, I think it's a really good comment. I think it's a really good segue to talking about like timing and stuff, because here we are in Q4 right now. We're kind of pre-BFCM right now. This is the Super Bowl for e-commerce. And so, like, what do you say to those that are listening right now that, a lot of them will have their Black Friday. I mean, we're really, I don't know, like as this recording, like 3 weeks out-ish. And so knowing that, it's just like a lot, they may have some ad creative ready. They certainly have their products and promotional things kind of semi-dialed in right now. What do you say to some people about, this may not be the perfect opportunity right now, depending if they don't have their ad creative set up yet. But let's suppose they don't, like, what do you say to people that like to want to implement Extuitive now? Is now a good time? Because it sounds like you can ingest quite quickly and start getting in some hypothesis about ads that could perform well. Is now a good time to, because I guess my thought is this, there is, and Harley Finkelstein from Shopify, it talks about this a lot, about share of wallet, and how fact that shoppers are going early, and they're shopping early, and they're looking now because they don't want to run out of stock. They want to find the best things that are out there. And so I just want to make sure that now is a great time, kind of pre-BFCM. And if people are listening to this post-BFCM, is there still opportunity in Q4 to enjoy that holiday time and get some better ad creative into the market?
Yeah, I mean, I think as it relates to Extuitive, Steve, for the next, probably till end of the year, what we are going to allow our Shopify merchants to do is just to go to our website, which is, as you said, extuitive.com. Just copy and paste their URL, and they probably need to wait under 3 seconds. And we are going to show them a couple of examples of what we are able to do. One, we are going to show them at least 1 or 2 examples of their target audience based on the products that we have been able to see on their website. with the psychological profile, with the income ranges, with the age range, and so on. We'll also create about probably 3 ads for them, and just based on the products that they have, and using the products that they have, and they can just have a look at it and see if it's something that is impressive for them to dive deeper into, and if it is, they should subscribe and use the full options that is available to them. By the way, including validating existing ads that they have that they may not have created through us. If they already have ads that they have created, they can upload to our system and ask our AI consumers to rank them and tell which ones are going to potentially perform well, which ones are not going to perform well before they launch.
It's amazing. So, like I said, I'm aligned with a lot of D2C founders, and I did exactly what you said. Extuitive.com. I put the URL in, and it says, we can help identify who's ready to buy from this particular brand. And, you identified a lot of really interesting things. Like this particular company is like modern Renaissance enthusiasts. And you saw the size of potential buyers, who the audience is, the historical aesthetics, and yada, yada, yada. And you go into a lot of different things near age range, income range, and gender is split. And then you go into some, the psychological profile and a few different things. And you've generated, in my opinion, because I know the founder of this company, and what's being generated here is very significant. And I love the like or the dislike. And I think it's really impressive. I wish we were on video right now to show the live what I'm seeing here, but it's really well done. Kudos to you and your team.
Thanks again.
Yeah, this is amazing. Well, Armin, thank you so much for recording today. I mean, I joke on the show, but I'm on page 2 now of notes, and that means a lot when when I get a founder on to talk about the problems they're solving, and it's clearly people want to use AI, but they just are, like I said, a little bit skeptical, or they don't want the brain rot looking, truly quote unquote AI looking type images. And it sounds like the way your system works is significantly wider with a lot more data points, and then still letting the human be involved. And I think it's really interesting. And it clearly, from what I'm seeing here right now live, these ads would convert. And I'm going to contact this founder like right now after our recording. But thank you so much for coming on the show. Any parting notes for those? Other than going to the website, is there any kind of final takeaways for those that are listening today?
Not necessarily, Steve. I just wanted to thank you. I also want to thank your listeners for spending the last 30 minutes or so with us. And if we are able to help with anything, especially in the next several months, we'll be happy to. I'll personally be engaged in responding to our prospective customers. So please reach out.
Sounds good. So that's extuitive.com. And once again, Armin, thanks so much for recording.
Thank you, Steve.
All right, take care. Well, that's it for today's episode. I'd like to thank you personally for being a loyal listener of E-commerce Fastlane. It's my hope that this podcast is offering you a ton of value through growth strategies, tactics, and exclusive insider tips on the best Shopify apps and marketing platforms, all with my personal goal to help you build, manage, grow, and scale a successful and thriving company powered by Shopify. Thanks for investing some time today and listening to the show. I'm so proud and excited that you have a growth mindset and are a constant learner. I truly appreciate you and your entrepreneurial journey. Enjoy the rest of the week and keep thriving with Shopify.